For Lily's 6th birthday, my former in-laws sent her a cute brown teddy bear. At first, she looked thrilled. Then she went still. "Mommy, what is it?" she asked. I leaned in, took a closer look, and felt all the color drain from my face. I did not scream. I did not start a fight. I acted. 3 days later, the police were standing at their door. Lily's 6th birthday was supposed to be simple. Cupcakes, paper hats, and 3 little girls shrieking in my living room like tiny opera singers raised on glitter and sugar. The problem with simple is that your life also has to be simple, and mine definitely was not. I was in the middle of divorcing Jason. The paperwork seemed to float through my life like a bad smell. The tension was everywhere and nowhere, which is a terrible way to live when you are trying to keep a 6-year-old from realizing her whole world is being rearranged. So I tried to make up for it. I went full birthday mom. I hung streamers. I packed goodie bags. I baked cupcakes from scratch instead of doing the normal thing and buying them from a grocery store bakery, staffed by professionals. I even invited the parents to stay, which I still cannot fully explain. Maybe guilt. Maybe self-punishment. Maybe I wanted witnesses in case I lost my mind and started eating frosting straight from the piping bag. There were 3 friends there. Lily's current best friends, though at that age the list changes all the time. Their parents hovered with that awkward energy people use when they are trying to be kind without admitting they have already asked each other in private if Claire and Jason are really over. I smiled too much. I laughed too fast. I used the voice people use when hosting a cheerful event while quietly falling apart inside. Everything looked fine. Lily looked fine. Then the mail arrived. It was a neat pink box with a bow so perfect, it looked measured. Brenda and Ronald, my former in-laws. The kind of people who believe presentation is the same thing as character. A note was taped to the top. For Lily. Open today. Of course, they were not coming to this party. Lily was having another birthday with Jason a few days later. But they wanted their gift open now, so I set it with the other presents, not knowing that one soft little toy was about to change everything. Kids opening presents together is pure chaos, like a natural disaster with prettier wrapping paper. Lily tore through a pack of stickers, squealed over a glittery water bottle, and lifted a plastic unicorn like she had just discovered fire. Then she reached for the pink box. "This one is from Grandma and Grandpa," she sang, like she was introducing a new character in a play. She opened it carefully. Carefully, because Brenda had taught her to be gentle, which sounds sweet until you realize gentle was really Brenda's favorite word for obedient. Inside was a brown teddy bear with a little heart stitched onto its chest. Lily's whole face lit up. She loved stuffed animals. She loved anything soft, loyal, and quiet. Honestly, so did I. "Oh my gosh," she whispered, hugging it like it had just saved her life. The other girls crowded around her. "It is so cute. I want one too." One of the dads, a nice man whose name I could never quite remember, laughed and said that Bear was going to be her new best friend. I laughed too, because that is what you do when someone says something normal at a normal birthday party. Lily carried the bear off to play, and the house slipped back into its usual birthday noise. Kids ran through the hallway. Parents sipped coffee like it was medicine. Paper plates piled up. Frosting appeared in places frosting should never be. At that moment, it all felt normal. Not peaceful, not calm, but normal. And that is the trick with normal. You never realize it is the last quiet moment until it is already gone. About 20 minutes later, Lily appeared in the doorway to the living room, with the teddy bear tucked under one arm. Her little brow was furrowed the way it gets when she is trying to solve a puzzle. "Mommy," she called. I turned toward her, still holding a smile on my face like it was part of my job. She stepped closer. She was not crying. She was not upset. She only looked confused. Then she held up the bear. Near one seam, hidden under the fur, was a small opening, almost like a zipper. The kind of thing you would never notice, unless you were a child who believed every object in the world might be hiding a secret. Lily squeezed the side of the teddy bear and looked up at me. Her voice was soft and careful when she asked what it was. Something in that tone went straight through me. I leaned closer, and my skin turned cold, because inside the opened seam, barely visible through the gap, was something that definitely was not stuffing. It was hard. It did not belong inside a toy for a child. My stomach dropped so fast I felt it in my knees. My first instinct was to react the way my body wanted to. I wanted to grab it, shout, and call Brenda and Ronald right away to ask what kind of sick game they thought they were playing. But there were 3 little girls behind Lily. There were parents in my living room. There was birthday cake waiting to be served. And there was my daughter, looking at me like I would explain the world. So I swallowed everything. I made my voice gentle. I told her to let me see it for a second. She hesitated and asked if it was broken. I told her no. I lied and said I only wanted to check something. I took the teddy bear from her hands as carefully as if I were holding a bomb. Then I told her to go play and promised to bring it right back. She nodded, because Lily was a good kid, because she trusted me, because she had no idea she had just handed me the beginning of something much bigger. I walked down the hall without rushing, because rushing would have made the parents look up, and I did not want questions yet. I stepped into my bedroom, the room Jason and I used to share before the divorce, turned it into neutral ground, and closed the door. My hands were already shaking. I sat on the edge of the bed with the bear in my lap and stared at the seam. I stared at the hard shape inside. Then one thing became completely clear. This was not an accident. This bear was not just a gift. It was a message. My heart thudded once, heavy and slow. I opened the seam a little farther, shifted the bear in my hands, and let the light fall inside. My breathing turned thin. My face went pale, and something old and tired inside me finally changed into anger. Outside the bedroom door, I could still hear the party. Laughter, don't eat, running feet. Somebody calling for juice. In my lap, that brown teddy bear sat there looking innocent. It was not. I did not cry. I did not scream. I did not call anyone. I did the only thing I could do. I closed the seam, smoothed the fur, and stood up. I hid the bear in my room, somewhere Lily could not reach. Somewhere it could not somehow find its way back into her arms. Then I looked at myself in the mirror and practiced a smile like I was rehearsing for a play, because I still had a birthday party to finish, and I was not ready to let anyone see what had just changed. I walked back into the living room, served cake, sang happy birthday, clapped at the right moments, and all the while one thought kept sounding in the back of my mind. That teddy bear had already done its job, and I still did not know exactly what that job was. After the last guest left, I stood in my kitchen staring at a stack of paper plates. Lily was upstairs brushing her teeth and humming to herself. She had had a wonderful day. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt like I had run a marathon while holding broken glass in my mouth, because I knew what was waiting in my room, and I knew who had sent it. Brenda and Ronald did not become my former in-laws by accident. They came with Jason like a warranty nobody reads until it is too late. When I first met Jason, he was charming, funny, easy, the kind of man who could talk his way out of a speeding ticket and then convince you the officer had been unreasonable for standing there. He was not cruel in an obvious way. He was not loud. He was not the kind of husband your friends warn you about right away. He was slippery, and looking back, that was the most dangerous kind. Money used to disappear in ways that were almost polite. Never dramatic enough to force a crisis right away. Just enough to make me check the account twice. $100 here, $200 there. Jason always had an explanation. He had paid the car insurance. He had picked up groceries. He had covered something for work. And for a while, I believed him. Because that is what love often does. It makes other people's stories fit. Brenda and Ronald were always nearby, close enough that dropping in felt like a hobby. Sunday dinners, random weeknight visit, phone calls that began with just checking in and ended with questions about how I was managing things. They were obsessed with money in that old-fashioned way, as if money and morality were the same subject. They asked casual questions that never felt casual. How much was I saving each month? Was I still using that bank? What was in my name? And what was in Jason S. If I hesitated, Brenda would tilt her head and smile at me like I was a child hiding a bad report card. Jason never stopped it. If anything, he helped it along. He would laugh and shrug and say that was just how his mother was. Sometimes he would add that maybe they had a point. There is a special kind of betrayal in being outnumbered inside your own marriage. Then Lily was born, and the money got worse. Not because babies are expensive, though they are. It got worse because Jason started acting like financial stress was a personal attack. He became restless, irritable, secretive. He stayed out later. He took calls in the garage. I found transactions that made no sense. Withdrawals at strange hours. Payments I could not connect to anything in our real life. When I asked, he got defensive. He acted like I was interrogating him, instead of trying to understand why rent was due, and our account looked like it was bleeding. He always turned it into a fight about my tone, my timing, my trust. The truth is, my trust issues were not imaginary. They had been built slowly, piece by piece. It took me longer than it should have to say the word out loud. Gambling. Not a few bets with friends. Not harmless fun. Gambling, in the kind of way that makes money vanish and leaves behind debt, excuses, and adrenaline. When I confronted Jason, he swore it was not that bad. He swore it did not happen often. He swore he had it under control. Brenda and Ronald reacted in exactly the way you would fear. They did not tell him to stop. They did not tell him to get help. They told me I needed to be more supportive. They said money pressure makes men do foolish things. They hinted that maybe, if I did not make him feel judged, things would be different. Somehow, it always came back to being my fault. Jason let them do it. He stood there while they talked over me as if I were part of the furniture. Sometimes he would sigh and say we did not need to do this right now, as if the problem were the conversation, not the gambling. I tried for longer than I like admitting. I tried budgets. I tried counseling. I tried being calm, rational, and patient. I tried giving him more room, which sounds laughable now, because what he really wanted was room to avoid consequences. But I had a daughter, and eventually you realize you are not raising one child. You are raising two, and one of them can drive. The final shift came after my father died. He was not young, but losing him still felt like someone had pulled a chair out from under my life. He left me some money. Not enough to quit working and buy a vineyard, but enough to matter. More important, he left a trust for Lily, about $150,000. He did not lock it down to the last penny. He trusted me. It was there for Lily if she ever truly needed it. That was the whole point. But I did not want to touch it. I wanted to protect it like oxygen. College G1. A first apartment. A future where she did not begin adult life, already behind. Jason found out, and the tone of our marriage changed overnight. At first, he framed it like a suggestion. We could borrow a little. We could pay off some things. It was for Lily anyway, so using it now still counted as using it for her. He talked about that trust like it was a loophole. Then, the requests got sharper. He claimed there was a business opportunity. Then, an urgent debt. Then a situation that would explode if we did not act. Later, I learned those emergencies were really gambling losses he could not say out loud. When I refused, Jason got angry. When I refused again, Brenda and Ronald joined in. They cornered me at dinner. Brenda smiled and said a good mother uses every resource for her child. Ronald grunted that money has no purpose if you refuse to use it. Jason sat there like a spectator in his own life. That was when I understood this was not only about money. It was about control, and they wanted mine. So I filed for divorce. I did not want that life. I did not grow up dreaming about custody schedules and split holidays. My own parents divorced when I was Lily's age, and I still remembered the confusion. 2 birthdays, 2 homes. The feeling of being passed back and forth like luggage. I had promised myself I would never do that to my child. But I had also promised myself I would never let my child grow up watching her mother be drained, financially and emotionally, by a man who would not stop, and parents who would never let him face himself. So I did it. Then, because I apparently make hard things harder, I tried to be generous. I offered shared custody. I offered a clean split of assets. I even offered to stay peaceful around the inheritance I had received during the marriage, because I did not want a legal war. Legal fees can swallow a life whole. Jason acted agreeable. We were close to settling. Vanessa Kim, my lawyer, calm and razor sharp, believed we were almost there. Jason had not signed yet, but he played cooperative, and I let myself believe him because I wanted to. Lily deserved adults who could behave like adults. So when Brenda and Ronald mailed that teddy bear and insisted it be opened early, part of me thought it was just another power move. A performance. A way to make sure their presence still hovered over my house, even when they were not inside it. I did not yet understand how far they were willing to go. But one thing had already become clear. Earlier that day, standing in my bedroom, I had offered them peace, and they had answered with something hidden inside a teddy bear. That meant the peaceful version of all this had never been real. It had only been a mask. And if I was already giving Jason more than enough, then I had to ask myself one ugly question. What else did he want? By the time Lily was in bed that night, my face hurt from pretending everything was fine. She was still glowing from the party, with sticky hair and frosting near her cheek, the soft exhaustion of a child who had been celebrated properly. She mumbled that it had been the best birthday ever. My throat tightened. I told her mine too, and that was a lie. Mothers lie for love all the time. I tucked her in, kissed her forehead, and stood in the doorway a little longer than usual. Lily knew something had been strange about the bear. She knew I had taken it away, but she did not know the storm behind that small moment. And that was the part that hurt most. When the house finally went quiet, the quiet felt loud. I went back to my room and pulled the teddy bear from where I had hidden it. It sat in my hands like an accusation. I opened the seam wider this time. Inside was a small device. Hard plastic. Wiring. A bit of metal. Not stuffing. Not a squeaker. I did not understand it at first. I am not stupid, but I am also not the kind of woman who casually identifies electronics hidden inside plush toys. So I did what any modern woman would do when faced with a nightmare wrapped in fur. I took pictures. Close shots. Different angles. Every tiny number printed on the plastic casing. Then I searched online. At first, the results did not feel real. They felt like something from another person's life. But piece by piece, it became clear. A recording device. A location tracker. They were trying to spy on us. The only question was why. What exactly did they want? What did Jason want? My hands went cold all over again. I sat on the edge of my bed staring at the bear, thinking about how many times Lily had hugged it already. How many times she had pressed her cheek against it, because she thought it was safe. I did not cry. I did not call Jason. I already knew how that call would go. He would deny everything. He would call me paranoid. Then he would warn them, and they would change tactics. So I put the bear back together, sealed it in a bag, and sat in the dark with one thought repeating in my head. Jason was the one in that family who knew tech. The next morning, I called Vanessa Kim. I did not even try to sound casual. I told her I needed to see her. Vanessa did not ask why. She just gave me a time. Her office smelled like clean paper and stress. I sat across from her desk and slid my phone toward her. I told her there had been a device hidden inside Lilia's birthday gift. Vanessa studied the pictures without changing expression, but her eyes sharpened. She zoomed in, then out. Then she looked at me and said very calmly that this was serious. I told her I knew, and that was why I was there. She set my phone down carefully, almost like it might bite. Then she said that before we talked about the device, she needed to tell me something. My stomach tightened. Vanessa opened a file, turned one page toward me, and pointed. Jason had rejected the shared custody proposal. He was asking for full custody. My mouth went dry. That made no sense. He had told me he wanted this settled. Vanessa held my gaze and said she knew what he had told me. But in the paperwork, he was claiming that I was unstable. My heart started pounding in my ears. He was calling me unstable. Vanessa nodded and said he was also asking that the court place him in control of decisions involving Lily's care and finances. There it was. The click. The reason. It was not really about Lily. If it had been, shared custody would have been enough. Full custody meant control. Full custody meant access. Full custody meant a path to the only real money left in this whole disaster. Lily's trust fund. I sat there with my hands clenched in my lap and felt something shift inside me. Something that had been trying very hard to stay polite for months. I had offered fairness. I had offered peace. He responded by trying to bug my home and take my child. Vanessa leaned forward and asked if I had proof of his gambling. I said yes right away. Messages, bank statements, texts where he pressured me to use Lily's money. Vanessa said good. We were going to need all of it. Then she tapped the phone again and said the device needed to be treated properly. I needed to file a police report. The device was evidence now. Forensic results might take time, but the fact that it existed already mattered. I nodded, because by then my body was no longer running on fear alone. It was running on strategy, on protection, on something very close to war. Vanessa watched me for a moment, then said quietly that I had offered Jason an uncontested path forward, and he had chosen conflict. My jaw tightened. Then he was going to learn what conflict really looked like. Vanessa did not smile, but I could hear approval in her voice when she said that was the right response. I left her office with a list of things to gather, accounts to document, and copies to print. I also left with something I had not felt in months. Clarity. Jason had never been trying to keep this fair. He had been playing to win. And now, so was I. A few days later, it was time for Lily's second birthday gathering. The one with Jason. The one with Brenda and Ronald hovering nearby as if they had never done anything wrong in their lives. I did not want to let her go. Every protective part of me wanted to stop it. But I also knew how it would look if I suddenly blocked the visit without enough proof. If I became difficult overnight, I would become exactly the story they wanted to tell about me. So I did what mothers do. I planned. That morning I fastened a watch onto Lily's wrist. It looked like a normal child's watch. Bright. Simple. The kind of thing children love, even when they cannot really tell time yet. I crouched in front of her and kept my voice light. I told her that if she felt scared, she should press the button. Lily looked down at it and asked why. I told her it was just in case. Sometimes grown-ups get mixed up. If she could not find Daddy, or if she needed me, she should press it. She nodded and said okay. I kissed her forehead and smiled, though the smile never reached the rest of me. Jason arrived to pick her up and stood on my porch like a man who had practiced looking harmless. He greeted me as if we were just two friendly parents managing a schedule. Lily ran to him. He lifted her and spun her once, like a perfectly normal father. I watched his face. I watched his hands. I watched everything. Then he gave me an address and pickup instructions for later that evening. I took the paper. He left with my daughter, and the moment their car disappeared, the waiting began. The hours dragged. I tried to act normal. I cleaned the kitchen. I started laundry. I checked the time too often, then checked it again, because anxiety makes your mind refresh the same fear over and over. When it was finally time to pick Lily up, I drove to the address Jason had given me. It was a building, not a house, not a backyard with balloons, not a place that looked like a child's birthday party, just a plain building. I pulled into the lot and sat there for a second, scanning everything around me. No cars I recognized, no music, no children, no decorations, no sign that a party had happened there at all. Maybe it was inside, I told myself. Maybe there was a back entrance. Maybe I was early. I got out and walked the perimeter. I checked the number on my phone, looked at the doors, and tried to find something that made it make sense. Nothing did. I checked the time again. I checked my messages. I called Jason. No answer. I called again. Still nothing. I sent a text saying I was there and asking where they were. No reply. At first I blamed myself. Maybe I had the wrong building. Maybe I had read the address incorrectly. Maybe I was standing on the wrong side. I kept trying to stay reasonable. Maybe they were late. Maybe they were 5 minutes away with Lily in the car, singing to herself. So I waited. I watched the street. I called again. Nothing. Then, slowly and horribly, the excuses fell away and fear stepped forward. Because when your child is missing, your body understands it before your mind can say the words. Then my phone buzzed. It was not a call, not a text. It was an alert, an emergency signal from Lily's watch. My hands went numb. I opened it and saw the location. Lily was at Brenda and Ronald's house. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might get sick. I did not. I moved. I got back in the car and drove fast, but carefully, because panic driving gets people killed, and I needed to stay alive long enough to get my daughter back. As I drove, I called the police and told them my 6-year-old daughter had sent an emergency alert, that I had gone to the pickup point and she was not there, that I could not reach her father, and that I had her location. The dispatcher asked questions, and I answered them all. My voice sounded strange to me, flat and focused, like I had turned into a woman made of checklists. I gave the address and kept driving. When I turned onto Brenda and Ronald S. Street a few minutes later, a patrol car was already there. Relief and fury hit me at the same time. I pulled up, got out, and ran to the door. Before I could knock, it opened, and Lily burst out like she had been underwater too long. She ran straight into my arms and held on so tightly that her little fingers hurt. I held her against me and breathed in the smell of her hair, her shampoo, the warmth of her small body. A child should never be used as a weapon. I whispered that I was there, that I had her. She pulled back just enough to look at me with wet, confused eyes, and told me that Grandma had said I did not come. She said I had abandoned her. My throat closed. I told her at once that I had come, that I had been there, that I had been looking for her. Her face crumpled, like she was trying to hold two truths at once and did not know which one to trust. Behind her, Brenda appeared in the doorway with her hands clasped like she was welcoming people to Bible study. Her voice was sweet when she called it a misunderstanding. Ronald stood behind her with his arms crossed, looking annoyed, as if my missing child had been an inconvenience to his evening. One of the officers stepped closer and asked a few calm questions in that neutral tone people use when they have seen every version of family chaos. Lily sniffled and said she got scared because Mommy did not come. Of course she said that. She was 6. Someone had told her that. She had believed it. She had pressed the button because she was afraid. Brenda murmured that Lily had been very emotional lately. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the same smile she used to wear at Sunday dinners when she asked me about my bank account as if it were her business. I did not argue on the porch. I did not explain. I lifted Lily into my arms and said we were going home. Brenda looked like she wanted to protest, but the officer standing there stopped her. Jason was nowhere in sight, which felt exactly like Jason. I buckled Lily into the car and drove home with my whole body shaking from contained rage. Once we were inside, I made hot chocolate. Not because hot chocolate fixes fear, but because it gives little hands something warm to hold, and sometimes that is the first step back to safety. I sat with Lily on the couch until her breathing slowed. I told her quietly that I would never abandon her. She nodded, exhausted, and leaned into me like she was still a baby, even though she was 6 and determined to be big. Later, after she had fallen asleep, I opened the watch app on my phone. I was not expecting much. Maybe a timestamp, maybe a location log. But when I opened the emergency alert, I saw that there was an audio file attached. My fingers hovered for 1 second. Then I pressed play. At first I heard muffled movement, fabric brushing against something, a child's breathing. Then Brenda's voice came through clearly enough to make my skin crawl. She was telling Lily that her mommy did not come. Lily's small voice answered that I had said I would. Then Brenda again, softer now. The kind of softness that hides poison. She told Lily that sometimes mothers say things and do not mean them. Ronald's voice rumbled in the background, telling her to stop crying, because big girls do not cry. Lily made a small broken sound, and my stomach turned. Then Brenda spoke again, and this time it was not comfort. It was instruction. She told Lily that if anyone asked, she should say that mommy forgets things, that mommy gets upset, that mommy is not stable. I stopped breathing. Lily whimpered, and Brenda kept going. She told her she did not have to like saying it, but it was important. Daddy needed help. They needed help. And mommy could not take care of her the way they could. The recording went on. More coaching. More pressure. More deliberate adult hands trying to shape my daughter's reality into a weapon. This was not confusion. This was not a misunderstanding. This was a plan. I saved the file. I backed it up. I sent it to Vanessa Kim. Then I sat on the edge of my bed in the dark, listening to the quiet house, and thinking one cold, steady thought. They had wanted proof. Now they had handed it to me themselves. Months later, we had the hearing. By then, it was no longer one disturbing moment. It was a pattern. A teddy bear with a recorder and tracker hidden inside it, sent by Brenda and Ronald, and tied back to Jason. A police report. Forensic results linking Jason to the device. And Lily's emergency recording, my 6-year-old child sounding scared while adults coached her as if they could rewrite her memory. It was not his word against mine anymore. It was their voices, their choices, their fingerprints. The judge did not need me to perform pain. I did not need to deliver some dramatic speech about motherhood and sacrifice. I only had to tell the truth and hand over the evidence. I was awarded full custody. Jason was given supervised visitation. On paper, it looked structured. In real life, he barely used it. Every other week if he felt like it. Sometimes less. Sometimes he canceled at the last minute, as if fatherhood were a subscription he could pause when it became inconvenient. Brenda and Ronald disappeared from our lives completely. Lily stopped asking about them. Not after that day. Not after the lies. Not after being turned into a pawn and feeling it, even if she could not fully explain it in words. Children do not always know how to name betrayal. They just stop reaching for the people who caused it. Financially, I could finally breathe. My salary stayed in my home. No more money vanishing. No more emergencies that always demanded my sacrifice. Lily's trust fund stayed untouched and invested. $150,000 exactly where it belonged. In her future, not in someone else's appetite. Sometimes, late at night, I think about how close I came to playing nice all the way into a trap. Then I look at my daughter asleep. safe and steady. And I know I did not go too far. I went exactly far enough.